Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how I made this Bowser cake. It's actually for a cosmic bowling party, so at the end we're going to be making it glow under the black light. I've already built the structure for this cake, so I'm going to start out by adding Rice Krispie treats to the tail and arms to bulk them out. I use Rice Krispie treats for the arms and tails of these kinds of structures because they're too small to make out a cake, but the Rice Krispie treats are still delicious and they almost always get eaten. Now it's time to stack our cake. I'm using vanilla buttercream colored green because that's the birthday boy's favorite color, and chocolate cake. I use the template that I used to build the structure to get a general idea and size of cake that I need for the layers, and I start assembling. Once I have my cake stacked and filled, I can start carving. I always start by carving away small pieces at a time because you can always take away more cake, but it's much harder to put it back on. Now I'm making some cake pop dough, which is just a mixture of chocolate ganache and our chocolate cake scraps. I mix them together and it makes a cake clay. This is the same filling we use for our cakesicles at the shop. It's delicious and perfect for filling in any spaces that need to be rounded out, like the back of his shell or his belly. Once I'm happy with the shape, I cover the whole cake in chocolate ganache. I prefer using chocolate ganache instead of buttercream to cover the outside when I'm making sculpted cakes. It makes the cake much sturdier and gives you a longer working time for sculpting all the details later. The best way I've found to smooth ganache on rounded cakes is with a gloved hand. Once everything's nice and smooth, it's time to sculpt the details of Bowser's face using modeling chocolate. I just keep looking at reference pictures of Bowser and adding modeling chocolate wherever I need it and blending. I've decided I want Bowser's eyes to light up, so I'm going to try a new technique using boba straws and balloon lights. This will make it so before the party I can add the balloon lights through the back of Bowser's head through the straws. Now I'm just doing a quick test to make sure the light is shining through. Everything looks great, so I'm going to finish the details of the face. Once I'm happy with the shape, I roll out a thin piece of modeling chocolate and cover the jaw and nose area. Now it's time to add our isomalt eyeballs. I made these ahead of time using clear isomalt and red irises. I need the light to shine through the eyes, but I need the back of the eye to be white, so I took a round piece of fondant and placed it in the back of the eye and then cut a hole out where the straw is so the light can shine through. This way the light will shine through the eye and they'll glow, and then you'll still be able to see the white through the back. After a quick test, everything looks great, so I move on to covering the belly in the same color as the mouth. I press it onto the cake and then cut out an oval in the shape of his belly. After everything's nice and smooth, I add the lines. Now it's time to cover the rest of the cake in light orange modeling chocolate. I cover the cake in sections, making sure that the seams meet under the arms. I'm not too worried about the seams in the back because most of this will be covered by a shell. Now it's time to sculpt his feet. I roll out 3 pieces of orange modeling chocolate for each foot as the toes, and then I blend them into the ankle. Then add pieces of modeling chocolate and blend wherever they're needed. I'm using my ball tool to press in the ends of his toes where the toenails will go. Then marking in some lines on the knees and toes. I'm using 2 different size plastic straws to mark in the scale. I squish the ends so they're not perfect circles. These don't have to be perfect. We're going to be adding more scales later with balls of modeling chocolate to make them look more 3D, just to add more texture and layers. Now it's time to add the fingers to our hands. If you're having trouble keeping the fingers in place, you can use popsicle sticks or toothpicks to hold them up until the modeling chocolate sets up a little more. Now I'm pressing holes into the ends of each of the fingers, just like we did with the toes, for the claws to go in later. I'm covering the top half of his face and head in green modeling chocolate and then just gently pressing in all of the details. Then carefully I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and cut away the excess around the cheeks and then cut out the eyes. I'm adding pieces of green modeling chocolate for the eyelids and blending and sculpting until I get the right expression. Now it's time to cover his shell. Press and smooth the green modeling chocolate and then cut away the excess. Don't worry too much about the seams because there's going to be a white rim that goes around the outside of his shell that will cover most of the seams. I'm marking in the pattern on his shell, starting in the center and working my way out to the sides. This doesn't need to be perfect. We just want to have sections for our spikes to stick out of the center. Once I have the pattern marked in, I use my balling tool to press in where I want the spikes to come out. Then I do the same thing for the horns on his head. I'm rolling out cones of white fondant for the spikes on his shell and sticking them on the cake with water. Before we put his horns on, we're going to go ahead and put the border on his shell. So I'm just rolling out a large snake of white fondant and then placing it around the outer rim of his shell. I'm adding his claws and teeth using the same technique we used for the spikes on his shell. We're just making them much smaller. Now I'm adding brown rings of modeling chocolate around each spike and then blending them down into the shell. I'm adding his hair using chunks of orange-red fondant and then pressing in lines with my Dresden tool. I apologize, I didn't realize my camera wasn't recording for his eyebrows, but I basically did the same thing, just smaller, and then pressed them in above the eyes into the shape I wanted. I just realized I forgot to finish his nose, so I'm just pressing in 2 quick nostrils. I'm using balls of green fondant to press on green scales to the top of his arms, having the scales get gradually smaller as we go down. Now I'm adding some to his face to give it a little more texture. I'm also adding some to the top of his legs using the orange modeling chocolate. When it comes to sculpted cakes, layers of texture really make a huge difference. I'm using powdered brown food coloring to add some shadows. This really helps make all of our sculpted details from earlier pop. I'm doing the same thing to the lines on his shell using black. This cake is actually for my son's 8th birthday. There he is helping me paint his shell. And we are using fluorescent food coloring powder mixed with water to paint the green of his shell and the red of his hair to make it glow under the black light. This cake is going to be for his cosmic bowling party. And now he's all finished and ready for the party. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like and subscribe.